Okay, so welcome back to the four-wheel camper ultimate build, Project M. If you haven't seen the original video that I did, it'd probably be better to start there, because mostly what I'm going to talk about in this installment is things that I like, things I don't like about my build. I just got back from a month-long trip to British Columbia for climbing, a place called Squamish, and I got back a few days ago and cleaned up the camper and thought I'd do a video and just see where I'm at on what I like, what I don't like. So let's start off with, so this area, the kitchen area, worked out perfect for me, really. You can always use more space, but in my case, for the space I had, I feel I used what I had to work with pretty well. I'm not going to get into specifics about things that I've done in the camper overall. I'm just going to mostly talk about the things that I would change, and later on I'd like to do a video on the different systems in the camper. So it would be the water system, the heating system, including the radiant system associated, the electrical system, although I probably won't get into a lot of detail on that because there's just so much really good information out there. None of what I've done on this camper is necessarily earth-shattering ideas that nobody's ever thought of before. I have some unique things that I haven't really seen in other campers. One being this lift, I think is pretty cool. If you want to know more about that, let me know in the comments, because there's just so much that goes into building something like this and utilizing the space efficiently, because there's not a lot of space. A couple little things that I'll say right off the bat, for as much as I put into this and the different systems and the amount of batteries and the amount of water that I have available to me, including a hot water tank, the propane, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't leave you with a massive amount of storage for just regular stuff. But that's okay if you are smart about what you bring. I think you can work out. So things I've changed, little things that I've done. So in this area, the only thing I've really done in the kitchen is I have had some leftover vinyl that I used on a wind deflector up front, which I'll show you in a little bit. So this area right here, I just put this on with some leftover vinyl. It just gives a little more consistent look. There's not pieces of aluminum sticking out. This was just purely black ACM panel, which was fine, but I kind of like the look of this. It's got a little shine, it's got a little bit of flatness in the hexagons, and so I like that a lot. The sink worked out great, used it a lot. One thing that happened was my gray water tank, my little gray water tank, developed a leak in the side. It cracked, and that was probably really the only problem I had for the trip. Was it leaked, got up front, wasn't really sure where the water was coming from. Thought maybe it was my tank leaking, but it turns out it was just, there was a crack in the little gray water tank I had in there. It's like a 5-liter tank. Since then I've replaced it with something similar, basically just a fuel tank. I cut a hole in the top, and this is now my little gray water tank in places where I need to collect my gray water from the sink. So now I'm just going to turn to, I'm going to grab the camera so you don't have to look at me, and I can give you more detail about what's going on in this thing and what I've changed. All right, so let's just do that. Okay, let's get my finger out of the way. So I'll give you a little closer look at that hexagon material. It's pretty cool stuff, I think. Nice to work with. It cleans really well, easy to work with. Let's see, I've got a list this time, so that's awesome. So my covers. I got some vinyl, some canvas covers made that have a hinge on it. So the upper cabinet, or the upper cushion and the lower cushion, are now connected together in the base along here. So it's foldable, still works exactly the same. It'll lay flat, but I don't have to worry about the upper cushion sliding out or losing the upper part of my cushion. I've got this for both sides, as you can see. Also under the bed, the big cushion, and honestly, they're zippered on. I just put them over the factory cushions that came with it, including with the vinyl cover and the black vinyl cover that was on it. And I like them a lot. And honestly, I think I paid under $200 for all of them. And the one for the bed is pretty big. I'm pretty sure they were sewn in China. They were custom made. I think it was covers and all, I believe is where I got them from. And I got them in like 2 weeks. So it was pretty quick turnaround. I mean, they don't tell you that up front, but it was pretty quick. One of the other things is, moving on from the covers, is I installed the DC-DC alternator charger. Lost my words for a minute. Now, since I was in British Columbia, a lot of times it's pretty cloudy and I'm not getting the full capacity of my solar panels, or I'm in an area, I'm camping in the trees. When I go to town, I can push 30 amps into my batteries with the DC-DC. So that was a really nice addition. What I will say is, and it's nothing new, these are known, the older ones. They have a newer one out now that does it. It's more efficient. It doesn't heat up as much. And these things heat up a lot. And when they heat up, they lose efficiency. You start getting less than 30 amps out of this particular one. Something I need to do, and to kind of help with the heat, one thing I've done, I've got an aluminum plate that this is mounted to that rests against my water tank. So the water tank is kind of acting a little bit as a heat sink. And it works okay. Something I want to do, and I'm going to do, is in this door, I'm going to drill some 1-inch holes at the top and the bottom, so there's a little bit more ventilation. It kind of limits a little bit what I can put in the cabinet. I don't want something underneath it. It's just going to heat up, and that's going to be an issue. So that's one thing I added. It was really nice. Never really overheated it, but I kind of kept that area clear, put some kind of stuff that wouldn't go up against it, so there was a little bit of circulation around it. And you've got to have that because these get really hot. All right, let's close that up. Let's see what's on the list here. So the stove. So originally I had a stove that I had across here that would run off the low pressure system in the camper that also goes for the Propex heater, my propane heater that's in here. I found that I didn't really need it. I don't use it. It's probably one of those things that I did that I wouldn't do again, and I wasted probably a day building things on it, installing lines and all that stuff. What I'm using now is just the good old Everest stove, which I really, really like. I put a quick connector on there. I bought a regulator that's adjustable, so I can put it outside. I can take one of the propane tanks that is normally stored underneath. I can take it outside. I can put it on a picnic table. I can use it on my tailgate. It's just a much better overall system. Back here, while I got you in the frame, I carry my little DeWalt vacuum cleaner with me. That thing's awesome when you're on a trip. If you're trying to keep your camper clean, there's nothing like having a vacuum. You can just keep kind of the dirt and the dust down. I was where I camped, there was a gravel road near it, so there's quite a bit of dust in the area for a while. Eventually they sprayed the road, so I didn't have to deal with that, but it dusted up the place and I was able to take on a rest day, just go deal with that. I talked about the angle fridge. Still a big fan. Always been. Had this thing forever. One of the things I liked about the angle, and I don't think it's unique for angle, but you can take the whole basket out and take it inside, clean it really well. That way you don't have a whole bunch of stuff you're taking in the house after a trip. You can load up all your stuff in the house in the basket and take the whole basket contents, bring it in here, put it in the fridge, and it's good to go. Of course, I got the insulating cover on. Love this thing. Great fridge. The only thing I would like would be a bigger fridge and one with a freezer. A freezer would be really nice. Okay, little things I did. I did some cleanup on the wiring. Not a lot. I just tied the wiring in a little bit better for the MPPT charge controller. I left some ventilation along the back, and this is just that same material I used all around, which I talked about a little bit in my first video. In fact, I talked about it quite a bit because I think the stuff is really nice to work with, and it's pretty inexpensive bed rug. I think it's a universal bed rug is I think what it's called. I also put over here, my switch is here now for my exterior LED lights. Okay, so coming around here, can't really see it, but there's a screen, a flexible screen, and let's see if I can get to a spot where it focuses kind of on the screen. I'd originally had put a kind of a hard screen, like a regular screen door in here, and I found it to be a real pain in the butt. It was always in the way, and so I just went with a flexible screen. I had my lovely wife sewed this up for me, put magnets in it. I got some Velcro at the top to hold it in place. I'm not a big fan of Velcro if I can get away with it. It just has a tendency to tear things up. We've got 2 dogs. It collects long hair like a magnet. The magnets are nice, and when I'm not using it, I can either just take it off and store it, or what I do is I've got a fire extinguisher up here. I just stick it to the fire extinguisher, and that gets it up out of the way so I can get in and out of the camper. So I like that. I like it a lot. Let's see. I use the microwave quite a bit. Like I mentioned before, I have an induction stove, and here's my garbage. Speaking of garbage, I like to utilize space. So I had this space in here underneath here that I need access back here, but I wanted something little for a trash can. So I found this little trash can on Amazon. Came with a little broom and all kinds of crap. But what I like about it is it's just got a little self-adhesive clip in the back, just for little things, espresso pods, paper towels in this case, and it just clips on. And what I find is, if I'm going to put like a bunch of junk in there that's going to be sticky or nasty, I'll just put like a dog poo bag in there. Works great. And that keeps the mess at a minimum. But I like that a lot, and what's nice about it is it's taking that space underneath the fuse box. So again, I like to utilize space when I can, because there's just not a lot of room in here. Okay, let's see what else is on the list. I think that's it for the inside. One thing I need to do is I need to move my smoke detector away from where the stove is. I'm probably going to take it from where it's at and put it, I don't know, maybe over here or something like that. It needs to come out of the way because it's not great. What else did I do in here before I go outside? I've got kind of the screens in because the light was pretty, maybe it's not now. I love this screen. It does bring a lot of light, a lot of air, nice airflow. So my screens I store like this when they're open. You can kind of make a little pocket, take the interior and just stick it up so it's nice and neat. So it stays out of your way, you're not scratching the vinyl windows. Bought this cover here, it's pretty sweet. Just made out of cotton. Totally washable, it's not super bulky, pretty nice. So let's pop outside and we'll talk about a few things out here. Now when we go out, you're going to notice I've got my awning set up. I have owned a Alucab shadow awning for the last 10 years prior to having a four-wheel camper Project M. I had it on a topper belt. So I'm just going to talk about that briefly, and I'll probably do a video on just the awning, because I think there's just there's a lot to talk about in this. I have this set up for if it's raining, because these are notorious, like a lot of the awnings. They pool water like crazy. They're great for shade, not so great when it's pouring down rain. This is no exception. These things pool water like crazy. I have it set up for that. I have it tilted, and I'll show you how I can tilt it. As you can see, this is angled so that it kind of runs downhill. And the reason I can do that is because the brackets that I bought for the shadow awning and the four-wheel camper, they make a rigid style bracket. Mule makes these brackets. So the brackets are this piece here. This is the swivel bracket. And with the swivel bracket, the reason why you need the swivel is because you can see right there, that's my clamp for when you put the top down, that holds the top down so it doesn't blow off. And there's a clamp there, see it in there, and there's also one at the front, right there. And as you can see, without being able to tilt this down, this hits. Right? So you got two options. You can move the clamps, which a lot of people do. They use just the rigid design, there's not a swivel. Or you can buy these swivel ones. The bad thing about the swivel ones, they're not nearly as stable or as rigid as just a one-piece one. There's some inherently problematic things going on with these things, in my opinion. This is not very robust. This little clamp here, I added this little guy. It's a little quarter turn pin. They had already put a hole in this bracket, so when it's closed, you can put a bolt in it or a pin or something like that. This one's an M12 thread, this threaded part, so I had to thread this bracket, and then it's just a pin. You turn it a 1/4 inch and it's spring loaded and it pops into that. But again, not going to get into it too much. So the reason I like the swivel is I can do what I'm doing right now. As you notice, it's angled. The awning is sitting at, instead of being full vertical, it's tilted a little bit. That allows me to shed the water off, mainly this side. So I like that a lot. Other things that I've done, I just did this. I had put the awning on before I went to British Columbia, so I had to deal with a couple days of rain. And this worked beautifully. Some other people on YouTube suggested pool noodles to kind of prop it up and get it so that things run away. Alucab actually makes a kit that you can get to put on these. It's a tarp clamp and their pole system. And I just made my own. You can get the rope, you can get the tarp clamps, and I just use these pulley style locking ratchet deals. And I just got these. These are great. They're awesome. These little orange guys right here. I think they're like $10 for 2 of them. The original straps that come with the Alucab awning, sorry guys, I don't like them. They don't adjust worth a darn. I'm a fanboy of the Alucab product in general, but there's some detail stuff that they've done that just makes me scratch my head. So they put all this really cool embroidery on these straps, but they're all custom made. And they put this little plastic strap on there. And it could be because, you know, my awning's 10 years old and it's been exposed to sun, and this is probably a little stiffer now. That said, I've never used these straps. Maybe once for a day or two. I typically don't tie the awning down. That's beautiful. That's one of the reasons why I bought it. I typically don't have the legs down. It's usually one of those things, I'm in the desert, I'm climbing, and I just want some shade for lunch. I can put it out in 5 minutes, I can put it away in 7. So I don't really use them. One of the things, the Alucab, maybe they've changed it now. Again, I've had this for 10 years. Use it a lot in the desert for shade. One of the things that I found right off the bat is this right here. I changed this to a cam action, so it compresses the tube. And what originally came with it was just a screw, and it screwed in and pressed into this tube, and it just tore it all up. And it got to a point where you couldn't slide the tube back in and forth. The telescope didn't work anymore. So ditched that, redesigned the whole thing. Bought new poles. I think they're for a boat awning or something like that, and adapted them to work on here, and they do work really well. So enough about that. Beyond the mule brackets and that sort of thing, this thing's great. Now, these pool noodle things are just kind of an experiment for me. It's not a permanent solution. They work great if it's not windy. If it's raining and it's not windy, they stay put, they don't go anywhere, they work great. But like last night, I had this set up overnight, slept out here in my backyard to test this because it was going to rain. But they didn't say it was going to have 40-mile-an-hour winds. Probably gusting to 50. This thing worked great, held up to the wind, no problem. But these guys just blew out almost immediately. So my plan at this point is to build some more of these and attach them to here. And as you can see, that hole right there is in the same place as that one. I'll have to do something up here because this has a reinforcing area, but I'll probably just put a tennis ball or something like that, which other people have done, even on these, to kind of keep that wear down. But I'll do something like that. And I've got to pay close attention to make sure that I have the room that I can go above this tube with this 1 inch. So when this folds down, this goes up above this 1 inch. If that's not possible, I'll use a piece of channel that'll just wrap from the top down, and that should be no problem. I'll do a little geometry to make sure everything locks into place. All right. So the awning, great, awesome, love it. Highly recommend. Weighs about, I think it's 53 pounds. Is what so it's not light. But I haven't seen one that's stronger, sturdier, and I use this thing a lot. So I'm a big fan of the Alucab awning. So there's a bunch of them out there now. I haven't seen them all. Haven't seen one better, let me tell you that. All right, so moving on. Let's look at the wind deflector that I made. I didn't have this last time, so this is what I made, and this is that same hex vinyl covering. And what I started out with is 080 or 090, I don't remember which it was, aluminum sheet, and shaped and formed it to fit the contour as best I could without a bunch of metal equipment. I was a metal worker all my life, so I know how to work with specialty metals. The bracket I had installed some Thule rails on the top, same as the Yakimas and all that kind of rail system. And then I just used a piece, this black piece that attaches to the rail with some 1/4-20 bolts or metric equivalent, whatever it is. And that rail is a piece of U-channel that is, I believe, 1¼ by 3/4. Some stuff I had laying around, and then I just welded a bracket up here, and then the face is attached with a couple of bolts. And it's very rigid, and what it does more than anything It helps a little bit with the fuel mileage, but I think it's probably more of a buffeting thing at higher speeds. So where I'm at, a lot of the states you can go into, it's 80 mile an hour on the freeway. So when you're going 80 miles an hour with a camper with this much wind load, it really starts to hit you pretty hard as far as your resistance rolling down the road, almost more so in amount of weight. And this thing's all said and done, dry is probably around 800 pounds. So I made it really light. Haven't weighed it yet, but that should be where I'm at. When I'm wet, you know, I can be 1,200, 1,300 pounds. So high winds, you know, going across Kansas, for instance, which I did a couple months ago without the deflector, I'd get a headwind and I would drop down in gear on a flat road in Kansas with a headwind and just kill my fuel mileage. Now, since I've done this, it's helped. The deflector has definitely helped. And it's definitely less noise, less buffeting, less rocking around, you know, that buffeting wind kind of stuff with crosswinds and that. It's helped quite a bit. So that's what I did. Another thing that I've done, I have 500 watts of solar on the roof. And when I went to Canada on this last trip, I got to a point where, like, wow, putting this top up and down is starting to become kind of a thing. You know, it's heavy. It had the 40-pound struts, updated struts for the lifts here and here. And I went with 60s, which it works fine. It's easy to lift. Probably a little overkill. Probably go to 150. I didn't look into a 50-pound strut. Maybe they make them, maybe they don't. I don't know. So, but these are the 60-pound Sustos, and it opens with a dream. I mean, the last inch or two, where it's getting that angle where it's basically down, it's still come down pretty hard. So you still have to do the initial lift for a couple inches, and then it takes over, and you can pretty much stop just about anywhere in lifting it. So once I get up 6 inches or say, I could just not do anything and walk away, and it would just stay there almost. That's at one side at a time. I have to actually pull it down when I'm taking it down. I put these on yesterday, so I can't tell you long term what this is going to do. Something that I do have a concern about is since I basically have gone heavier than what 4-wheel camper recommends. So I think their heaviest they're doing is 40 pounds. The biggest thing that you run into when you start altering stuff like this, you run the risk of ripping out the fasteners that attach the strut to the structure. So anything I'm doing on this camper, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm just telling you what I did. Who knows, 4-wheel camper may just say, hey, don't do that, you're going to destroy your camper. I don't know. I didn't ask them, I just did it. It seems pretty good this time. 100%. All right, what else have I done? Got a little breeze going here. So, audio maybe not the best. So something that is a big complaint on the project now is water coming in along the top. Just runs in there. The seal is horrendous on these things. Doesn't seal very well. I ended up, it's pretty hokey what I did, but it works pretty good. I don't know if you can see it. So this right here is a piece of silicone sweep, I think they call it. It's basically had an adhesive backing on about a ½ inch of it. And I just took the screws out along the top, stuck this on it, cleaned it with isopropyl, stuck it on it, and then ran the screws back in to hold it on. And what that does is if you're going down the road, it just keeps the water from just running directly in. It's kind of a little deflector. It looks a little hokey, I know, but it's actually pretty effective. It doesn't keep 100% out, but it probably keeps, I don't know, 70, 80% out, and that's good enough for me. Something I just did, yesterday actually. I don't always want to put the canopy out. Sometimes, like where I was at Squamish, it was kind of a narrow camping spot, so I couldn't really put this side out. It'd be in somebody else's campsite in these little double drive-in sites that they have. So what I want is something that just comes off the rear to protect you from, mostly just from rain. So what I did is I bought this track right here, and it's the same stuff that the Alucab. I think you can see a profile. Maybe you can. Right there. See that little guy right there? So it's a little round thing with a slit in it, and that's what the canvas rides in. And so I purchased one of these. You can see that. This is the gutter style one. I don't remember offhand what it's actually called. Got it on Amazon. So pretty much what happens is I'll be able to slide a piece of fabric, some sil nylon or something, across, all the way across, side to side. Stretch it out here. I've got a couple of holes that I carry with me, and I can tension it out for times when I don't want to put this out, or I just want a little bit more protection just behind. The advantage of that is I'll be able to go in and out of the door without any rain coming down. One of the things about pretty much any awning out there is that there's this gap between the awning and the door. And since this door, when you open it, even if you leave it there, it's still dumping on you. It doesn't really offer protection. But when if I put this piece of sil nylon across there and stretch it out, and I'll do a video on it when I do it. Like I said, I just installed that. Anybody wants to know what it is, let me know. I'll try to find it, leave it in the comments. And I'm basically going to do it. I might even put sides on it to offer a little bit more protection when it's nuking outside and I want to cook outside, or just want to get in and out. Because this awning, you can get the size for it and all that kind of crap. It's just a lot to carry. A little sil nylon tarp, maybe 1.2 ounce, could be whatever. Not for sun protection necessarily, although it'll diffuse it because the material in this stuff is it's blackout material with a solar flex on it, or that fancy stuff. This is just mostly just to get the rain off me, honestly. A couple pulls, a couple guy lines, and I'll be good to go. So that's the next project. Is to get that made. Well, actually, it's my wife's next project. She's the seamstress. So, what else? I think that's it. I think I'm done for this. I know I've got a lot more to cover, and there's a lot that I didn't talk about. But anyway, happy camping. Look for more videos from me. Have a good one.